Okay, so just a little bit about me is I am a designer here at Best Buy. I am very new to the industry. Also, I recently graduated technically this year, but also last year, you could say. I majored in HCDE at the University of Washington. If any of you guys are familiar with that, the big name is Human-Centered Design and Engineering. It's very long. But it basically focuses on UX design and UX research and really takes a deep dive into the two things. And so just random facts about me is that I'm an avid learner, always looking to learn, and fun facts is I'm a toy maker. I crochet personalized toys as gifts, and a conversationalist, always wanting to learn from everybody around me because we all come from very different backgrounds. So it's always interesting to hear people's perspectives and just how that impacts our choices and what we choose to do in the future. So the topic that I'll be talking about is academics versus industry, and these are just some key points that I'll be talking about, which is one is the process, and then two is the perspective. And so I'll just jump straight into it with the next slide, talking about process. So overall, this is kind of just bullet points of the ideas that I want to talk about. I'm just going to speak to you guys about it. First of all, I just want to raise some hands is how many people here are coming as a newer designer to kind of the field within the last 1 to 3 years or so? Okay, cool, nice. And then how many people here are roughly been in industry, a little bit more seasoned, been here a little bit longer than 4+ years-ish? Very cool. So this is going to hopefully help everybody in one way or another with my talk. So the first idea is when it comes to process, we all know the UX design process. We know that it is research, ideation, design, iteration, and it's a continual process that we're learning and taking a deep dive on. But the thing is that I want to call out is when you're in academics, when learning about the process, you have a very clear vision of what the process is. When you're working on the projects that you have in class, your teachers tell you, this week we're going to do research, this week we're going to do design. You know kind of where you're going to go because you have that guiding force, and the project is a lot more streamlined. But the thing is that in industry, that may not always necessarily be the case. When it comes to an industry, it is, the projects all vary, they all differ, and yes, always keeping in mind what the UX process is very important, but every project kind of calls for a different variation in what you need to do to make sure that you can provide the best experience to your user. So you have to be able to adapt the process to the situation that you have at hand. And that's kind of like a big thing because sometimes, so when you get so comfortable, especially coming from an academic background like myself, you get so comfortable with, okay, I know what I'm going to do next, but that's not necessarily always the case. And the other thing is, when you are in academics, the nice thing about having that timeline provided to you is that you know you can take a deep dive into every single step of the way. Whether it be a very big project that is overall, when you get to do the research to the design, you get to spend a couple of weeks and really, on your own or with your team, really deep dive into that subject because you're learning and you're able to actually practice the components that there are to each piece. But the thing is that when you're in industry, some of the variations is that the nice thing is you have a team with you now. You have your peers who are more seasoned in research or more seasoned in design, and you can collaborate with them and you can talk to them and really kind of get their input into the work that you're doing and the different parts of the process. So it's good to be open to kind of not having to, it's like you get to own your project, but at the same time, working with other people to really make sure that you're providing the best of experiences is one of the newer things that you get to collaborate with when you're in industry, but it's not something to forget about because it definitely helps along the way when you either end up tackling a very big project, or even if you just have multiple projects going on at once, as maybe some of you or all of you have experienced, you're not always working on just one project, you're working on a bunch of projects at once, and to manage your time and to manage the way that you are tackling each one, you're going to be at different steps of the process, and you need help along the way. So that's like a great thing to remember, that it is not always going to be super streamlined, and that's okay. And so that is kind of like where some of the key differences that I've noticed in the process on kind of just like my own experiences during the transition that I wanted to bring up, because I think it's very easy to want to stick to a template, or very easy to want to kind of go and jump around and stuff, but you really need to take it by ear and be able to adapt to the situation at hand. Next slide. Yep. So the next step that I want to talk about is perspective. So with perspective, it is kind of design versus all, and what I mean by that is, especially if you're coming from a design academic background or a certification background, whenever you work on teams, you're working on a team with other designers. So you guys all have a very similar perspective or a very similar mindset in the way that you approach the situation, that you don't really get to see other perspectives, because when you're in industry, you have a full-on team. You have PMs, you have QA, you have devs, you have so many other people that come in with different perspectives, whether it be business, implementation, various things. And it's always great to hear their perspectives, because coming from different backgrounds, you get to learn so much more, and it kind of challenges choices that we make for the better, because you really got to think through what you want to implement and what you want to kind of design on, because you never really know, like, ideas can come from anywhere, and being able to really gain that perspective from everybody else can create even a better idea. And so with that, it is also the idea that the other part of this is that when you're in school, we get to have this fun thing called magic. When it comes to magic, it is basically, we're lucky that we get to start from the research, we get to deep dive into the research and go all the way to basically our high-five final design, but you don't need to worry about what happens after that. You don't need to worry about the implementation. You don't really need to worry about the business numbers that potentially are going to impact this. Some of us are lucky where some courses that we take or some projects that we work on do have some of these kind of guidelines or practices in place to really get the feel of how all those play together, but you don't really get the full picture of it until you join a company and join kind of the industry experience that, okay, now there is this overall company goal of meeting some kind of expectation by the end of the year, and there are limitations because of whatever language we're using or libraries or other technical implementations that we need to kind of either change the design or work within the constraints that we have to make sure that you're never really giving up the best user experience, because that's what we're all here for. We're here to provide the best experience to our users or our customers, but remembering that there's so much more that goes into it now, and you can't really, you need to make sure that you work together to really provide the best one. And having a team to do that, that everybody cares about what the end experience is going to be, is probably one of the best parts about it. Is everybody is working on this project for the same goal, no matter what role that they really hold. And so with that, they get to really, you get to really gain that perspective and work with people to do that. That's kind of what I really wanted to point out when it comes to the perspective piece. And this really plays in also with the overall that everybody has a different perspective, and it is definitely influential to understand it and to really take it in and make sure that we're learning and we're going together as a team, whether it just be designers or be everybody else. So just some takeaways from this is that I feel like, at least personally, I feel like it is really great to understand both academic backgrounds and industry backgrounds, because everybody here comes from a different, everybody got into UX in a different way. Some people came into it from the schooling, some people came into it through other design perspectives from either visual or graphic, and other people just came into it organically from any other role. But the thing that I feel like it's best to remember is there needs to be a collaboration of the two experiences that you bring into it, because no designer ever works on their own. We're always working with other designers, and understanding where that background comes from is really helpful in just the collaboration and the conversations that you have, because sometimes it can feel frustrating. Somebody wants to do one step in the process while another person wants to do a different one. And there's always a reason behind it. It's not that they just want to go willy-nilly and be like, oh yeah, this is where I think it's the best way. It's because that's potentially how they were trained or how they were taught. And understanding where that parallel comes from can be really beneficial when working with each other. And I think this is like a really big call out for both new designers and more seasoned designers, because as a new designer, we come in with a very ideal perspective of what design is and what the process is, but really learning that, adapting and learning from others about how they, not necessarily completely flip the process around, but how they kind of take steps to adjust it to the project itself is really beneficial. And it's also beneficial for more seasoned people, whether you are mentoring a newer designer or just working with another designer that comes from a different background, to remember that because everybody comes from a different perspective, that it's great to learn and great to remember where they're coming from, learn from them as a person, and then work together and collaborate as a team. So we're all constantly growing in our career paths, and because of that, it is really great to just remember to everybody is learning along the way, whether you come from academics or just industry alike. And yeah, I mean, we're all aiming to create the best experience. And I personally have learned a lot from my peers academically back when I was in school about UX design, and I've also learned a lot from my peers here at Best Buy, as they all come from very different backgrounds and have helped me grow as a designer. So never shut yourself away from learning from others, because everybody has a different perspective. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Yeah. Thank you.
So I am a UX designer at CSATS, and CSATS is an assessment platform for minimally invasive surgery. So essentially, the video that gets taken during a robotic or laparoscopic surgery gets sent to us. We give it to people who are going to be assessing the video along a series of domains and technical skills, and some qualitative feedback given by experts in the field, give back to the surgeon. That's the core of our product. So you can get this slide. So that is me, obviously. That picture was taken a little over 2 years ago, which is really crazy to think about now, because that's the day that I graduated. I also went to UW. I was in the Human Centered Design and Engineering program. And I was very, very optimistic, as you can tell. I was very happy that day. My dad took that picture. And what I'm going to tell you now is what I wish I had known then, preferably during the program while I was learning, but that day would have been good too, before I got into the actual industry. Before we get into this, before I start telling you about what academia didn't teach me that I needed to know, I want to make very clear, I'm not here to just say that academia is bad. We can learn very many valuable things. There all these different, very fancily named theories on the impact society has on technology and technology on society, and understanding the impact that we as designers have on the rest of the world and how powerful design can be. However, simply by the nature of academia and the time constraints you have, the fact that it's very much a bubble, there are just some things you're really not going to get a good sense of while you're in the program. I'd like to pause for a second. I know we already did a show of hands for experience, but just so I can see really quick, who is currently in the middle of a program, be it at university or boot camp or something like that? All right, and again, can we see people who are starting out in their career? Let's see, 0 to 3 years. All right, cool. So hopefully this will resonate and be helpful. Next slide. So we're all familiar with this. We've all seen it in some form or another. The very kind of formal structured as we already saw just now in the previous presentation of the design process that we're taught. And it's very clean, and you get out of school thinking like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna follow this whole process. I'm user-centered, I'm human-centered, I'm gonna listen to the users, I'm gonna make something that is really beneficial to the users, I'm gonna make this product, follow this, and unless you're very, very lucky, you do this and something like this can happen. I heard a huh over there. I know, it's kind of my reaction looking at that too. Pretty much any time I get an opportunity to work this photo into a conversation, I will do it. Actually, more often than you think is possible, but also I look for opportunities. But essentially what I'm trying to show here is you end up creating some feature, and and it works great as it is, and it makes absolutely no sense in the context of whatever product is already there. And it really ends up breaking the experience somewhat. So this is, let's say, you just finished with some mock-ups, for example. You went through the whole process, you have something to show the rest of the team now, and someone looks at it and goes, well, this is really great for this one specific situation, but there are all these other different situations and all this other context in the product that didn't get accounted for. And you go, oh crap, there's like 8 different flows that I didn't know about. Or another example, hey, Prerna, great job making that structure of tags to label the videos that were coming in with context. That's really great job, and I see you have them all laid out in a hierarchy. Small problem, if we make the hierarchy that way, it's going to break all of the tags that already exist in all of our videos for the entire history of the company. And you have a problem again, so I'm seeing some nods in the audience, I know. This is something that you run into. So this whole issue of backwards compatibility, you're really not going to get in the program unless you're very lucky and you have a program that will give you a little bit of context, like, okay, this is what we're working with. But for the most part, have like a 10-week quarter or a couple months in a semester. The product never existed before, and it's never going to exist again. It exists in a void, and real life design does not work that way. Poor critter. So here we have the issue of scalability. And so you design something, and it works really great for the company as it is, or for the users as they currently are. This is something like, oh, look, great job, Prerna. You made this media management tool so that our media manager at our little startup company can process the videos that are, and then people start using it, it works great, it's wonderful. And then a little while later, the company grows, and you're getting more videos in, and now we hire another media manager. And now we have 2 people trying to use the tool at the same time. And now, let's say, 2 people are trying to edit a video at the same time, or send a video out at the same time, and now we have duplicates and all these mistakes everywhere, and it's inefficient, and we have all these different problems happening. Scalability issue. Like I said, the product in academia never existed before, it's never going to exist again, unless you take the idea and run with it and make a startup, which is good for you. But this isn't something you get a good sense of when you're in academia. So how do we counter this? How do we fix this in real life? So here's our original flow with a little bit of modification. As soon as you get research, as soon as you have a sense of what the users need, you sit down, you figure out the flow of the product as it exists and where whatever new feature you're going to put in is going to happen, where it's going to go. Then you find the developer or developers, whoever you know is going to be the person who's actually implementing this product when you hand it off. You want to make sure, if possible, it's the same person, start to finish. And you find them, you sit down with them, you make sure that flow makes sense. You make sure it's not going to cause any issues on the back end, or if there's a reason why something exists the way it is and you want to change it, it's not going to break anything. Same thing when you start to ideate. And at this point, you also make sure with your product manager, or if you're at a really small company that doesn't have a product manager anymore, find your boss, find somebody. Because here's where scope creep can start to happen. You need to know what the scope is that you have time for and have resources for, because projects have this habit of snowballing and becoming like, oh, well, we can make the experience better if we add this little bit on, and oh, that's going to change something over here, and that by nature is going to change something here, and it becomes this huge issue. So, scope creep, and keep checking the feasibility with your developer on everything that you're thinking about, because, like I said, it might break the product. Then, same thing as we're iterating and prototyping, and this happens as many times as you need to do. In school sometimes, or in a boot camp, you only get like 2 rounds and then go. Not the case. And finally, by the time you're at the very end, you're about to launch, there should be no more surprises when you're about to hand it off. You have the final sign check, your boss or whoever puts the stamp on it and says, okay, hand it off. No more surprises at that point, because you were working with them and you were checking and figuring out what is the context of this project this whole time. This is an issue that honestly happens quite a bit when your product is used in the medical field. Like I said, we assess surgical videos, and surgeons are very used to getting what they want, when they want it. And in school, I'm not looking at this, I'm just like, look at that. But in school, we are told, listen to the user. Like, the user's gonna tell you or find out from the user somehow, like, what you need to do, and keep the user at the center of your process. And you want to do that, and you hear whoever it is say, I need this button. And you're like, okay, I listened to you. I'm gonna give you this button. But they are doing, next slide, please. What my boss calls the I need a beer problem. You get home from work, you're really tired and you're stressed, and you go, I need a beer. Well, the beer might make you feel better temporarily, but it's not going to get rid of your actual stress. And a lot of the times your users will tell you, I need this solution. Your job is to find out what their problem is. That sounds kind of like what's your problem. No, find out what it is. And you guys this slide. In a very, very simplistic example, I need a hat because my hair keeps getting messed up. In this very, very, very simplistic example, we can see that if you just take this and run with it, don't ask any questions, don't try to figure out what the actual underlying issue is, we can end up with all sorts of problems. And we can end up with all sorts of solutions that may or may not actually address what I need. You can have a hoodie to try to cover up the fact that my hair is messed up. You can have one of those huge hats with the big veils that ladies used to wear at the turn of the 20th century because automobiles were a thing suddenly, and there was dust flying into their face and getting in their hair, and that's how it was getting messed up. Or a swim cap because chlorine is bleaching my hair and making it dry and brittle. Or a sombrero or a rain hat or whatever it is to try to keep my hair from getting messed up or cover the fact that my hair's messy now. But then you start to dig in a little bit deeper, and in the simplistic example you say, well, Prerna, why is your hair getting messed up? What's going on there? And I tell you, well, when I walk to work and I live in Seattle, it rains on my hair, and it gets really frizzy. And you go, oh, so the hat you needed was a rain hat. That's a potential solution, but maybe the best solution was an umbrella. Maybe I didn't need a hat at all. This is one of the key things, especially if your user base is very insistent, this is what I need, and they jump straight to the solution. You need to say, okay, I hear you. What value would that bring to you? What is the context behind this ask? And that's where you can figure out how to use your design thinking and do your job, keep the user at the center of the whole process. Now we are at the end of the presentation. Ask me anything, except not anything on here. I don't know if everybody can actually read those. It's a little grainy from where I'm standing, but it's a bunch of silly questions. But yes, want to do questions?
Hey guys. Hey. Hi, I'm Alison. Thank you for having me, please. I really appreciate being here. And I am you gave me a title increase. I'm really the junior UX designer at iSpot TV, but hopefully this year I will be the UX designer at iSpot TV. So let's get into this. So my speech or presentation is going to be about the entertaining realities that I have encountered as a junior user experience designer. Hello, I'm Alison. iSpot TV is in Bellevue, and it is a startup. And I use the quotation marks because it's 8 years old, and I'm not sure how long you get to call yourself a startup. So they still say we're a startup, so here we go. All right. So iSpot TV is a data analytics company, and what we do is we collect data on what people watch on TV vis-a-vis TV commercials. So we partner with smart TVs, and we see what you see. And if you fast forward through commercials, or if you turn away, or whatever. So we collect all that information, and it's legal, and you have said yes to it. That's a thing that I want to make clear. You agree to it, or not. If you didn't agree to it, we don't know what you are doing. So cool. I feel like I have to say that, this in general. So anyway, so once we collect all that data, our data scientists do whatever magic that they do that I don't quite understand, and then they feed that data to the dashboard, and now we give that data, or we sell that data to our clients. And that's what I work on. I work on the dashboard. All right. So I work on all of our products that are in the dashboard. So I've been there about a year, and when I started, I didn't know anything about TV advertising or data analytics, and I knew just a little bit about design. After a year, still true, but I know how to ask questions really, really well now. So there we go. So just maybe. Yeah. All right, cool. A little bit about me. I am a mid-career switcher. I'm a Star Wars enthusiast, and I'm a weightlifter, but most importantly for this evening, I am a recovering expector. All right? Let me explain what that means to me. So I expect myself to do everything perfectly all of the time, always. Sounds like a perfectionist, yes? Anybody else suffer from this? Okay. Here's the key part of the expector, though. I expect everybody else around me that I work with and that I come in contact with to also have the same expectation mindset. Everybody's on board with my expectations. Anybody suffer from that? Yes. Okay, cool. So I know that I do this, and I'm really trying to take it down a notch. Getting better at it, still real bad at it. All right. So let me explain how the cycle of expectation works for you. Right. All right, this is me when I'm excited about a very new important project or thing that I have to do. All right, I'm going to plan, I'm going to execute it perfectly, and everybody is going to be on board with me and do the things that I want and try as hard as me because this is a very important thing. Yes? This is what happens when I realize, oh wait, Alison, you're doing it again, girl. What you doing? All right, so this is me having to recalibrate. Oh, sorry. This is me. As you can see, me having to recalibrate my expectations. Now, I still keep my own expectations of myself, which is insane, and that's another thing that I'm working on, but that's not part of this talk. But recalibrating my expectations of situations and how other people perform, all right? So I want to take you through 4 different things that I have learned about being a recovering inspector and my experience as a UX designer. All right, number 1, getting the job. So, like I said, I'm a mid-career switcher. I moved to Seattle about 1.5 years ago. All of my previous positions had some UX design elements, and when I moved to Seattle, I was like, why don't I just do all those things in one job? So I did some research. I realized that in order to get a jump start on this, the best choice for me was to attend General Assembly's User Experience Design Immersive. It's a 10-week course. I got all of my design, that's gross overstatement. I got some of my user experience design knowledge from there, and I also picked that boot camp because it was promised to help me find a job in networking. Since I was new to Seattle, I thought that would be a really great idea. So GA prepped me for getting a job by practice interviews, whiteboarding scenarios, critique sessions, and the mandatory networking events, much like this one. This isn't mandatory, but this is an example of, like, you have to go to one, and I would have gone to this one, and been like, cool, sign my thing. All right? Thank you. Okay, so I took all of this very seriously because I was ready to get a job, and I wanted to be the best at everything always. Okay? So this is what happened when I actually entered into the job search. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, the interview questions, as you probably know, were pretty similar from company to company. The design challenges, the only thing similar about that was the ambiguity. I would get to the design challenge round of the interview, and they would say, hey, make this thing. And I said, cool. And that was it, right? So I thought that I was ready for this. And in reality, I was absolutely not ready for this. But the ambiguity gave me a chance to really test myself, and it made me comfortable with it, which got really important later on. Okay. The good news is I did actually get a job. So let's move on to the next one. All right. The next one was just learning the job basics. All right. I obviously made it through the interview process. Now I just needed to figure out how to be the best junior UX designer ever. So I expected to go in on my first day to a company, startup, that was ready for a new hire. I was going to go in, I was going to do my HR paperwork, I was going to sit down and start my new employee orientation. It was going to be amazing, right? I was ready to learn so I could be the best that I could be there. Well, what actually happened was, they did have a new hire orientation. They do it once every quarter, and I had just missed it. All right, so I was actually left largely on my own to explore the products and the methodology of what my company does. I got to learn by myself who was in charge of what and what the office dynamics were. That was an eye-opening experience. And I got really, really, really good at asking questions to anybody that would answer them. All right, so I got to know the company really well, very quickly. And I think that I was exposed to so much more in this way, in the reality of it, than I would have been in just a new hire training, sitting there taking notes like I was prepared to do. All right, the next one. So I was on the team, kind of learning the job, really excited about mastering this design process that everybody has talked about so far. I was really excited to be on the team because I just knew they were established. They had a design process. It was going to be amazing, right? I've done it. It's great. We had a product team, an engineering team, a QA team. We're all going to work together to make the best tools in our dashboard ever. This is what actually happened. It felt like everything was on fire all of the time. In actuality, well, first of all, I was used to, and Prerna mentioned it, I was used to, in my boot camp, one project at a time that moved in sort of a linear fashion. Now, I know the design process is not linear, but you do the research, and then you do this thing, and then you do that thing. Oh, you come back here. That is not at all what happened. What actually happened was, it turns out, they did not have the resources, or the ability, or the manpower, or anything to have a linear design process because there were so many projects with shifting requirements and so many stakeholders that were yelling at us all the time that that slide was really creepy. Happened to me today. So really, they were just doing the best they could with what they had, and actually hiring me gave them just a little bit of space to start implementing a design process. So the cool thing was that even though they didn't have one, I get to help make one. So that's exciting for me. That sounded bragging. Sorry. Not sorry. Last but not least, go ahead. Was working on a design team. Now that was one of my goals of getting a job. I wanted to work on a design team, and I got it. But because I was a junior UX designer, that gave me, the word junior for some reason gave me a giant complex. Like, oh god, I'm a junior. Okay. So, what? I put a ton of pressure on myself. I know this is probably surprising to you. I put a ton of pressure on myself to know everything all the time and be perfect. What's up? Imposter syndrome. I was worried they were going to find out that I didn't belong there because they didn't know what I was doing. So I had to like really perform and know everything all the time. What actually happened was, this is really, really cool. They actually knew that I was a pretty capable junior UX designer and that I didn't know everything, and that was okay. What? So they just expected me to show up and try hard and learn from my mistakes and redo things when I messed up, and that it was okay if I messed up because I was a junior UX designer. Imagine that. When I was writing this speech, I was reflecting upon this, and then it occurred to me that this was the very first time that I ever had this kind of support in a job ever. So I feel like I really lucked out with the team that I ended up on. I know, right? So really, what I'm trying to say is the common theme for me here was, regardless of whatever expectations I had of myself and others, really all I had to do was just show up and try hard. That's literally all I had to do. And I'm really, really glad that I just kept showing up and trying hard. And yeah, trying up. T-shirts afterwards. So I have to remember to tell Inspector Alison that, listen, all you gotta do is show up and try hard when she rears her really ugly faces. Alright? So I hope this helps some of you, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Probably incorrectly, but that's
So, hi, I'm Rayn. I'm a senior UX designer, senior experience designer. I don't know. They keep changing the titles. At Project 202, we're a software consultancy. A few offices all over the country. So I just moved to Seattle from Dallas in fall, so I'm new. And I like super admire some of your confidence in your memory, but I don't have that, so I'm going to look at my notes. So I'm going to talk about being a UX design school here. Are we designers or are we teachers? So this is about our expectations versus the reality, right? You're called designers. You would generally expect that being a designer would mean you spend most of your time designing, right? I spend most of my time teaching. I don't think I'm alone in that. We're going to try to put green, then it's good to go. There we go. So why is this important? It's important because you can actually become a better UX designer by becoming a better teacher. In order to grow as UX designers, we actually have to hone our teaching skills. We have to gain traction for UX in organizations by teaching people about UX. So this is super important. But what makes me qualified to teach you about teaching? A lot of things to go. I don't actually know. It's not a prereq. But as a consultant, I've been working in consulting for UX for the past few years. I've had exposure to a lot of different types of organizations and a lot of different types of people within those organizations. And I really had to kind of hone how I approach teaching all of those different types of people and different types of works. order to become a trusted advisor and do my job well. So I've had a lot of exposure to that. And basically most of what I know about UX, because I come from a UX education background, I actually learned by teaching other people about UX. So I also have a confession to make. I Googled stuff for this. And I don't just mean my cool gifts that are working right now. I don't know everything. So maybe I'm not qualified to teach you, but basically I'm here to say that like all of you are qualified to teach people something. You don't have to know everything in order to teach it. And I actually learned a lot by preparing this presentation, which is what makes you a better UX designer, by teaching things. I also used to feel really intimidated, by the way, about teaching people things, especially in UX, because I come from a UX education background. I started out with like traditional graphic design. I worked as a branding designer for a while, I worked as an ad designer, and when I got into UX, I was so intimidated. I was like, wow, all these people. And literally anything I learned, I was like, okay, maybe I know that thing, but like there's someone else that knows it more. So why would I teach people anything about UX when someone in the room is gonna know what I'm talking about, and they're gonna be like, oh, she's telling me things I know. But I got over that because I actually learned that there's a lot of people out there that don't know what you know, and we all gain a lot by teaching each other things and doing stuff like this. So what are we going to take away today from my talk? We're going to talk about how designers specifically fall into these teaching roles and why. Why does that fall on us? And how to adapt your teaching approach based on your audience specifically. And then also like how to learn by teaching others, because that's what this is all about. So why us? Why does this fall on us, specifically as designers, so much more than any other role? We're always the ones that are teaching all the time. First of all, UX is still like kind of a foreign concept to a lot of organizations. Just like staring at people. So great. So we come into these organizations, and for a lot of them, UX is just this new concept. And it's like the new hot thing, right? Everyone needs a UX team now, and we have all the answers in their eyes, and they don't know what all these methodologies and these secret processes are that end up with this like great product. It's also user experience. And the other thing that like we kind of all have known for a while about design is that literally everyone wants to be involved in the design. It's something that's relatively easy for them to understand the like initial concepts of, and therefore they want to be involved deeply in every aspect of it, which is actually kind of great. It can be annoying, but it's also great. So therefore it's our responsibility, and it's our responsibility to also be able to teach beyond the room. You hear people talk about this concept of presenting beyond the room a lot, especially in consulting. You have to be able to present your concepts in a way that are broken down to a level that people can explain your concepts to other people after they leave the room. And if our stakeholders aren't advocating for UX after they've talked to you, then we're not going to be able to get our job done. So how to know your audience. Basically, as UX designers, we can break our audience down into 3 groups. So we're either talking to stakeholders, we're talking to our cross-functional team members, or we're talking to other designers. So those are our 3 groups there. So first we're going to talk about how to teach your stakeholders. This is a really important group. These are the ones that are the most difficult to teach. So stakeholders, who are they? They are legal, brand, HR, marketing, finance, operations, business executives, etc. You know these people, you've all interacted with them. So why are we teaching stakeholders? They are kind of the most important to win over for gaining traction and making our lives easier. Stakeholders need to understand how UX works and why we make decisions in order to advocate for those decisions further up the chain. This is how we get resources and business buy-in. So how do we teach stakeholders? What's specific about teaching stakeholders? First of all, we have to be strategic with these people. Lots of ways. Communicate to stakeholders with confidence. Like, you have to establish yourself early on as the subject matter expert so that they will trust you, gain their trust, and then they will listen to anything you say. And when I say communicate with confidence, I mean you're the expert. I don't care what level you are. I don't care if you're a junior. To these people, you need to be the expert. Fake it if you have to. And that leads into establishing trust, right? Establish trust. Conduct stakeholder interviews. It's an important part of our process early on in our project. You need to sit down with your stakeholders one-on-one. That develops that trust initially. Talk to them one-on-one before you talk to them all in a room, so that you don't end up with like everyone yelling at you and having all these different opinions before they even trust your perspective. And then, like I mentioned, present beyond the room. Break things down in a way that they can share them out easily. So our cross-functional team members, these are a little bit easier. They're a little more forgiving, right? So who are they? There are product managers, project managers, product owners, developers, sometimes researchers. Some of you might be researchers also, but they still count. So why are we teaching our cross-functional team members? Mostly they need to understand our process so that we can work together efficiently. That's the biggest thing. So with them, the most important thing actually is to ask questions. Like, teaching your cross-functional team members needs to be a two-way street. You need to be learning from them as much as they're learning from you. Focus on cross-practice process, not so much on your own design process, but how the process can be made more efficient between your practices. And don't make any assumptions. What may seem obvious to you is not necessarily obvious to people that are not designers. So basically, like, don't get frustrated with people. Don't make assumptions. They may not know what you know, and vice versa. And the most important thing with your cross-functional team is to just be communicating constantly. Like, it shouldn't feel like a teaching session with these people. You should just be talking to them all the time, especially your developers. You have a lot to learn from them, and they have a lot to learn from you. And that, like, relationship constantly needs work and communication. And other designers, which is what we're doing here. Teaching other designers. This one is secretly the most important. Other designers, you know who they are. They're our peers, our colleagues, they're you, community members. Why are we teaching them? Because we learn the most from each other, obviously. You're all here to learn from us, and we do this all the time. So how do we teach other designers? Approach them with passion and excitement. This is the time to not be cold. This is the time to be really excited about what you're learning and what you have to share, and not care that someone else might know more than you, but just be excited. Look for different types of teaching opportunities. So you got to meet up. Share your knowledge in-house. Like, we have bi-weekly, we call them collab labs, a project to whatever your company has. If you have interns in your company, sit down with them, ask them what they're trying to learn this week. There's always opportunities to be teaching, and people always appreciate it. And lastly, be sensitive. Like, we're all sensitive. We all have the designer ego. Yes, we all also need to, like, gain a thick skin, and some of us get that in design school if you went through design school. Learn to take a critique, but, like, also be friendly and be sensitive. Oh, I forgot there was one more. Also listen. When you're teaching one-on-one, you need to, like, sorry, skipping things. So new designers and interns are usually grateful for help, but you need to take the time to listen to what they want to learn. Like, especially for someone who has a lot of a larger knowledge gap between you, it needs to be a little bit more about them. So listen first and then teach. Don't just come at them with what you want them to know. And the real secret is that we learn by teaching others. So like I said, I Googled stuff for this talk. I found out that there have actually been like official studies that prove that we learn better by teaching other people. So, sorry, I'm super nervous, by the way. So when we teach others, we improve our own knowledge. Like you absorb your knowledge better by teaching it to someone else. You learn more about what you're teaching by organizing your thoughts in a way that can be consumed by others. And teaching also helps us identify gaps in our own knowledge. So like if there's, you know A and you know C, by organizing that knowledge in order to share it with someone else, you realize that like you need to include me, and you learn about that. But the real takeaway here that I want everyone to leave this room with is that you don't need to know everything to teach it. So don't be intimidated. You will learn by teaching. So just go out there and teach people because it's part of your job. So getting better at it is going to help you be a better UX designer. And we don't always have to have all the answers.